Hi folks, Toad Hancock's here with VisorDown.com, and I've just spent probably the hottest day since hot days began blasting around my favourite roads on a very nice little Ducati Scrambler Cafe Racer. Let's have a little look at it, shall we? This thing is a proper little laugh to ride. It's a 9,700 there or thereabouts pounds motorcycle, and it's putting out about 75 horsepower. Not the most powerful thing in the world, but you know what, it's not a bike for big power and big numbers, it's just a bike for having fun on, and that's exactly what I've been doing. So let's have a little look through the engine first and foremost. So there are a lot of engines out there that have been around for a long time, but probably none as old as the architecture inside this thing. This thing can trace its roots back, way back into the annals of time, back to like the 600 and the 900 Panther bevel drive Ducati L twins that used to race at things like Daytona and Indianapolis back in the 1960s and 70s. It is a properly nice engine though. It's got a lovely character to it. It's very understressed. It's a 2-valve air-cooled with a bit of oil cooling as well, L twin, and it's so low stressed. It just feels great in this chassis. It kind of comes alive. I've got an air-cooled classic Ducati as well myself as one of my own bikes, and the character just kind of carries on all the way through. They've got the 50mm fuel injection on this bike, and it hasn't ruined that kind of character at all. It's still kept it. I love the way they've gone with the black gloss engine casings on this as well. I think it harks back to Ducatis of old. I think it looks great. It's a nice looking, nice sounding unit. Is just powerful enough to excite an experienced rider. I do find myself having to really wring its neck to sort of get the thrill of riding a motorcycle along these roads, but the main thing about the bike is if you are a new rider or somebody who's got an A2 license, because this would be so simple to A2 restrict it, this is just a really, really easy going engine that's nice and accessible and an easy access point into the Ducati brand. So we have got up front non-adjustable K-Arbor. I think they're 43mm front forks. They're okay. They're not brilliant. There isn't any adjustments, so there's not a lot you could do. If you're going to buy a cartridge kit for something like this, you may as well just wait a couple of years and upgrade it when you upgrade to a Scrambler 1100. It's good enough. It is very twitchy. It's partly due to the fact that the bars are sort of quite narrow and quite sort of sloped back. But the ride's good. It does sort of crash a little bit on potholes, if I'm honest. And the rear shock absorber again is a K-Arbor unit, and it's built to a budget. And it's good, it's adequate. But when the going does start to get rough, or you really start to hammer it round corners, it can tie itself in a knot quite quickly. You could have a play with it, but with no adjustment on the front. All you've got is a mechanical preload on the rear, so there really isn't a lot you can do. You just have to sort of like it and lump it. That's how the bike is, and it is still enjoyable to ride, even though it does sort of get a little bit tail happy and it sort of shakes its head every now and again. But you know, it's all part of the character of it. So hoops on this thing, we have got my Nemesis tyre, which is the Rosso Diablo made out of Blue Tack 3s, and yeah, I don't find them very good. I think they feel a little bit wooden, and when you get back on something that's got, you know, a tyre on it which is about 15 or 20 quid more, you think, well, okay, no, the difference is huge. But do you know what? I don't really think it matters too much. It's still a cool looking motorcycle that's got more go than some other cool looking motorcycles that try and do this whole retro cafe racer thingy-bob that kids find so attractive nowadays. And yeah, you can still hustle. You're going to have your mates who'll be walking away from you on their 1000s and their 800s and their 750s, but do you know what? You'll still look cooler than they will when they arrive at the pub all sweaty and sort of knackered out, and you're rolling into the car park and looking cool as a cucumber on this thing. So I just want to mention as well, while we're on the handling, it feels like a much lighter bike than it is. The wet weight on this is about 190 kilograms, which on paper sounds like an absolute huge amount. I mean, it is quite a lot, but as soon as you spring a leg over it, I don't know where they've hidden all the mass really, because it doesn't seem to be anywhere up here. It must all be just sort of spread about down there, because as soon as you get on it, and I'm not even talking about when you're riding, because it's the Road Testers 101, the weight just melts away as soon as you move down the road. I even say it, but it's not even that. It's when you take it off the stand and you just wean it around, you think it doesn't feel as heavy as it says on paper, and that relates on the road. It seems to move around the road and flick about very nicely. The narrow bars make it a bit of a pain to sort of, if you're trying to weave your way through traffic. All in all, yeah, it handles like it looks like it should, and that's just as a good little B-road scratcher really. Right, brakes. Up front we've got a single 4-pot Brembo caliper and a 330mm disc, and we've got a natty looking Brembo sort of semi-radial master cylinder. At the back we've got a single piston Brembo, kind of the budget end of the Brembo brake spin. The brakes on it they take a little bit of getting used to. This bike had only got 200 miles on it, and for the first 10 or 15 miles I didn't think the brakes were working, so I just took it as in that maybe they just needed bedding in, and they have got better, but the lever still goes quite spongy after about 10 minutes of quite hard riding, and there isn't a lot of bite or feel, and that's partly down to the Rosso 3s. But then again, if you're a new rider and you're coming up from a 125, this bike's going to feel a lot heavier and a lot faster than anything else, and you just want a brake that you can kind of feel exactly where you are. I don't know if it's worked, maybe it hasn't, maybe it's just me, but yeah, the brakes I don't think are the best thing about it, which is a shame, because they've actually used top spec master cylinders, calipers, and yeah, it's a shame that they don't have a better experience than they look like they should, if you see what I mean. So while we're just talking about the equipment, and this is the switch mode, there's your indicator button which doubles as enter and change which mode you want. Just wanted to show you the dash on this, because I rode the Husqvarna Svartpilen the other week, and it had a sort of similar dash arrangement to the Ducati, but this one I find a lot easier to read. It doesn't seem as jumbled up. It's nice and clear, big numbers. So at the bottom here we've got time, we've got our speed, we've got gear indicator, side stand warning light, got a total odometer, you've got your fuel at the top, and you've got a rev counter running clockways around the bottom. So that for me is a perfect example of a dash that works. That is still laid out in a funky different style, and yeah, just doesn't seem to take any effort to read what's going on. So, what do we like about the Ducati Scrambler Cafe Racer? I like its character. It's like a little angry little Jack Russell that's just constantly tugging at the leash, and honestly, it begs you just to sort of wring its bloody neck and get the thing on its ear and chuck it round a corner. And it can handle it. It's a little unnerving to start with. The brake suspension combo sort of catches you out, but no, it's got a lovely character to it. I also quite like the fact that you always feel like you've got the better of it. It never feels like it's overawing you, or it's the boss. It never feels like it's bossing you around. It's just got this kind of like nice, excitable, yet when it wants to and when you need it to be, it's got quite an easygoing character as well. The final thing that I like is that just the level of detailing, from the sort of the headlight with the little Ducati logo in the middle of it there, right down to the retro Ducati decals on the mudguard and also on the tank. I just think they nailed it with the colour scheme, the metallic blue frame set against the silver fuel tank, and all those little decals and neat little touches set against the black engine. I think it looks really cool. So, what don't we like? I've got to say, the brakes, even for me, when you jump on one bike and then another bike and then another bike and then another bike, you kind of have to get used to lots of different braking systems that all perform in different ways. But even so, I do think this one is pretty pretty poor. I would need a set of sintered pads in one of these if I was going to own one, and I did think that the last time that I rode one of these as well, because this isn't the first time that I've ridden one. Is there anything else that we don't like about the bike? I would like to be able to turn the traction control off. I know it's for new riders and so on and so forth, but yeah, I'd just like to be able to turn the TC off, really, just to sort of get the front end up, or just on a dusty, dirty road, just slide the back wheel around a little bit. It just seems to make more sense. The ABS, not really bothered about turning that off, because as a safety net, that's the one that you would definitely want there. About 10 grand for a sort of 75 horsepower motorcycle it's not what you call cheap, but for those who are aspiring to get on the Ducati ownership ladder, who may be just moving up from an A2 license, or even from a 125 straight onto an A2 license, and you really want that Ducati in your garage, this is probably the coolest one out of the range you can get. I mean, I know the Scrambler is it's all supposed to be cool and young and youthful, but this one just looks the bollocks, and the rest of them look a little bit, to me anyway, this is my personal preference, they look a little bit try-hard, and this is the one that I think looks the most authentic. If you've already got a big bike and you're looking at some Ducati Scrambler Cafe Racer shaped thrills, yeah, they are there, but they are also limited, and I think if you've already got bigger bikes, then you're going to quickly get bored of this, and you're going to want to just jump the queue and go straight up to the bigger Scrambler and make a Cafe Racer out of one of those yourself. But ultimately, it is a very enjoyable bike, it is a very pretty bike, but it is quite an expensive bike for what it is as well. You can read a full review on visordown.com.